just because a few jurors told me that it was picked up in trust and consent. So I think we should just see what's in there and then we go back. Is that okay? It's yellow, so I'll be back on it. All right, so stands on the computer. Daryl, it is over to you.
Okay, safety. From a point of view of what the report recommended, safety is an important consideration because of the potential impact from radiation to people and the environment and the long timescales involved while the material becomes less hazardous. The Citizens Jury has read the Royal Commission report and quizzed a number of expert witnesses. Many safety and security considerations have been presented and discussed, and there's still some question marks there, particularly from Stan, as to whether something needs to be put in there or not. The considerations included but were not limited to geological, seismic, there's limited discussion on acts of terrorism, but health and transport. All members of the jury agreed all South Australians need to feel confident in all of the regulatory processes so we can all feel confident in the safety of themselves, the environment and for future generations. This is another outline sentence which may or may not stay there depending upon maybe some other people's thoughts. It is important to discuss safety and security because of the timescale of the proposal to develop a GDF and the longevity of the high-level waste. Health situation. The NFCR examines the effect of radiation exposure on humans throughout all stages of the nuclear fuel cycle as given in Chapter 7. The jury heard testimony from expert scientific and technical witnesses on topics surrounding the various stages of the NFC transport, health, security and safety. The report addresses the effect of radiation exposure on humans, and most of the expert witnesses were of the opinion of the relative safety of the storage containers. There is some uncertainty about the impacts on flora and fauna, which will obviously warrant further study, as is done in Finland. The seismic and geological aspects, this is finding 72 from the book. We know that many parts of South Australia are remarkable with regards to geological and seismic stability, which are well suited for a geological disposal facility, but obviously, not that it's up there, but more research and study will be involved in deciding if that's going to be a place to put it. Nuclear storage. The report recommends pursuing the opportunity to establish a GDF, refer to recommendation 11 on facility 5, which is a facility 500 metres underground, somewhere in South Australia. However, a site selection was not part of the scope of this particular report. There is no facility like this that is in operation anywhere yet in the world, but sites are being developed in Finland, Sweden and France. Part of the process of the GDF is to store the used fuel in specialised containers. The NRFEC report concluded the storage containers have been rigorously designed. If you're interested in more information on the storage of nuclear waste, refer to Appendix I. The public needs to be confident in an independent, transparent regulator, particularly in light of regulatory failures, both internationally and locally. This is emphasised in the report in Chapter 9. There are international standards, research data and experiences that can be used to support introducing an Australian regulator to ensure lessons learned abroad would be included in our safety regime. The exact nature of a regulator would be determined at a later stage. The report looks at many different activities at different stages of the nuclear fuel cycle. Each stage comes with its own set of risks and opportunities. The report does look in detail at risks associated with mining, refinement, power generation and waste management. It is important to note that the most well-known incidents are associated with power generation, and the report does not recommend power generation in South Australia. And to some degree, I think that's probably been covered anyway from point 1. The report finds that there is minimal impact to the public and to workers as a result of the recommended activities. The expected doses are far below natural levels of background radiation that we are all exposed to daily. And see Chapter 7 for that particular information. Transport. The transport of spent fuel is already done internationally using specialised casks or capsules which are designed, probably capsules and casks, which are designed to withstand extreme impacts, including deliberate attacks and accidental damage. The report finds that nuclear material is transported routinely and safely. Accidents during transport have occurred, but there have been no breach of packages or release of harmful radiation. See Chapter 9 for that. There was diverse opinion from some of us, of the jury. However, the question mark have so far been convinced, now again, the wording here, however, probably members have so far been convinced that the entire process of GDF, including the transport of waste, is safe. High-level waste are fuel rods that have been pulled out from a nuclear reactor and has already been cooled down, refer to whatever ... for half a century or so. Nuclear waste requires permanent storage as its radioactivity is harmful for hundreds of thousands of years. There's still a bit of a question mark there when you look at Chapter 6, which shows a decrease in the actual amount of radioactivity over a period of time, which I think went up to about 100,000 years. I think that's it. Stan, is that right? Oh, sorry. Informed.
That's a new.
That's the next one.
Okay. No, I've got one on. I'm wearing one, but sometimes it doesn't go. Okay, so questions, or I don't know, shall we start with, let's do a couple of questions. Let's bat a few of those away.
Okay, just one, and again, it's more of an opinion for getting some of the question marks we need to fine tune. We need to make sure that the reference to the report is the same throughout the entire document. So in some cases we've used NFC, other times it's NREFC, in the other, what we saw earlier, which is RC. We just need to try and make sure the vernacular we use to describe the Royal Commission report is consistent throughout the entire document.
Yep, thanks Shane. I'm just keeping a note of these few things. All right, other questions or comments?
I'd like to just mention where the jury is mentioned in any of this. Can we not say all or most or few? Can we just refer to us as the jury? Because unless we've actually done a vote, we are misinterpreting what we're saying, because you don't know what I think about that. I don't know what you think about that. Yeah, thank you. Okay,
so just going with that one, therefore you'd be saying there was diverse opinion from the jury. Within the jury. However, the jury have so far been convinced that the entire process of GDF, including the transport of waste, is safe.
The reason the all, most and few is left there, because we can't write the jury, because that means everyone, and I don't think everyone's convinced, so...
Yeah, okay, so there's diverse opinion from within the jury, and there remains... okay, there was diverse opinion from within the jury that the entire process, including the transport of waste, is safe.
That's under the heading of transport, so we're referring specifically to transport there.
Yeah. So that blue bit, suggestion is delete it. Maybe do it as I'm going, Stan, and then you can just go back if you need to. Yep. From within the jury that the entire process of GDF, including the transport of waste, is safe. Whether the transport of waste is safe.
No, whether the entire process.
How's that? Transport of waste, high-level waste, exists today in Europe.
Sorry?
Does that,
Okay, so we
Sorry,
need a microphone.
can
You've
just
got one
wait
right
for the
next to you.
mic?
Does that include travel overseas?
yes. We send high-level waste today to Germany, as a state, as a country, today, already, from Lucas Heights, because we don't have a storage facility for high-level waste.
Okay.
So we send, and so does other countries, send some high-level waste overseas today for storage, above ground storage, not below ground, above ground storage. There has not been one accident or cause of human death or exposure to radiation as a result of transportation. So I'm saying that's indisputable.
Okay, so I'm wondering, I've got something to suggest to you here about, so I think what we're getting reactions from is to the judgment about whether the jury believes it's safe, and we haven't had that, discussion and agreement. So I'm wondering if you can say there was diverse opinion from within the jury, and something about witness, you know, the evidence provided by witnesses. The jury acknowledges the evidence provided by witnesses said it was safe or something.
But this isn't just about transport. The GDF is mentioned too. It may be in the wrong area.
Okay, all right, so give me a change. Hang on. So you need to give me a suggestion of what we do with that sentence.
I think it should be written that the jury was, or members were convinced that the process of transporting the waste is safe, because that is a proven
So there's people
fact.
shaking their heads, which is the problem. Okay, Emile?
I'm just trying to move, sorry, it's different points, but I've got 3 things in here. Like the language seems to be okay for an average person, but there are things that, like the abbreviations need to be clearly, what are the abbreviations for? Like in FCR, for example, what it is. The other thing, see chapter 7 in every section here. That just putting this down, that means like we're suggesting that everyone South Australia will have access to a report, which I don't think this is the case, because we will be talking to people who, like Khadija said that earlier, she's talking to people who doesn't read or write. So we need to make that a bit clearer, and maybe we can add some charts here, like the level of radiation everyone will be exposed to. Maybe a chart will be better, and yeah, just try to get rid of C chapter 7, C chapter page 100, whatever. 33. The other point is used fuel. I'll go back to Brett. What is used fuel? We need to mention it's high level.
Yeah, I've got that on my note to come back to in a sec. So can you hold that one?
Yep.
So I think we need to resolve this sentence.
Yep. If before that
Patrick.
sentence you were to write, the report suggests that transport is safe. However, there was a diverse opinion within the jury whether the entire process is safe. Therefore, one is, so we're sceptical of because of experts.
Okay, so the report suggests that the transport of waste is safe. There's a diverse opinion from within the jury. There remains a diverse opinion within the jury, or something.
About the entire process, that's good though, because it's not just about the transport. We have been talking about transport.
So this is about transport, this little bit.
No, it's in the wrong section because we didn't get a chance to cut and paste.
Oh, okay.
It's not just about transport, but it's under the transport heading. It needs to be moved, but I can't think
Where
it's
to...
near the end probably. It's maybe out of the final sentence.
All right. Well, my comment was going to be about in the transport context that a lot of our conversations for the whole past 3.5 days we come back to the sort of conclusion about some things we can't make decisions or draw conclusions about unless we have, like for another gateway. They're questions for another gateway, the other side of another gateway. For me, the issue about the safety and I accept that there's a diversity of opinion, but I don't know if this is the place to put that at all, because for me, I would have liked to, and again from my life experience with dealing with proposed waste repository sites on my country at a place called Billakalina about 10 years ago in this state. The safety considerations need to be considered on a case-by-case basis. So I wouldn't make my mind up about safety here in this forum with you guys unless I knew where it was and how far things were going and I knew all the facts about all those things. So for me, I would like, I think the broader the statement, the better, because I think all the safety considerations depend on the context. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Khadija. So Stan, you've got a suggestion. You've got a microphone right there in front of you.
So I've got a slightly different wording just there. There's a suggestion that we move the entire sentence out of the transport section. If we did so, then it would become a more broad sentence. And I think it's fair to say that the report does suggest that we can manage waste safely. So that's my sentence. What do you guys reckon?
Can I just say in the paper that we put forth earlier where we explained who we are as a jury, it has already been mentioned that we have a diverse range of opinions and views, and I can't remember the exact wording. And so basically the sentence that we're talking about could be written underneath every single title. So can we just leave it that we've already said it once in this whole, not just this one particular subject, but in everything, we've already said that we all have diverse opinions and points of views, and do we not need it under particular headings? Because really, as I said, it could be under everything if that was the case.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is a suggestion to take out that sentence, there was a diverse opinion. And, so yes, chop, delete. And then the report suggests that the management of waste can be done safely wherever that belongs, finding the right place that might belong up higher. Yeah? Yep. And on page blah de blah, whatever page that is, or in chapter whatever.
Sorry,
yes?
I'm not a Mac user.
You're not a Mac user. See, we need Mac drivers on the Mac. See, and I think we're moving that one.
Can
Okay.
I just go back to the PowerPoint?
Yes.
If we go scroll up, please.
Oh,
Sorry.
let me
Yeah.
just paste this before I lose it.
Sorry.
So probably up here
Somewhere in there, yeah.
So for the time being, we can just jam it in there.
Okay.
What section?
Caroline, where are you?
Where you were talking about power facilities. You. Yep.
Right there. Oh, yep.
Yep.
This guy.
Yep.
Yep.
So you said the report recommended power generation does not, but it actually did state that that's right now, that may change in the future, and I think that's an important part or comment to
So
make.
it does not recommend power generation is
within
SA
the current market.
at this time?
Yeah, within the current market.
Yep, okay, good.
Is that
At
that
this
wording
time?
that I've highlighted fair?
So he's got at this time written up.
Yep.
Yep, okay, good. Tick. Okay. And get rid of the question marks and the not relevant bit, and maybe you can un-yellow it, which will help.
Let's not push our luck with
I
the
can
Mac
I
skills.
can un-yellow it for you, if you like. Okay, so other burning questions? It's not close enough to your mouth or on. Is it on? Don't turn them off.
Very last line.
Very last line. Stan?
No, it's not.
Ooh. No, keep going. Yeah, you're right there.
Okay. Nuclear waste requires permanent storage as its radioactivity is potentially harmful for hundreds of thousands of years. Most of that duration is well below background limits.
Okay, so there's a reference in there too for the required in that bit where we need to find
Potentially harmful.
as its radioactivity can be harmful.
Oh.
I'm just trying to avoid big words.
Big words, trying to avoid big words.
Oh.
Can be harmful. Okay.
Is that reasonable?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, question over here.
Emily, I
Del?
understand the question regarding references to pages and everything
Yes.
else, but we were instructed as part of today's exercise to pull out reference data so that if people wanted to go and investigate
Yes.
what that meant in the report, we were supposed to do that. We had discussions with Ian and a couple other was on your documentation you provided to us, that we can't include everything from the report into a 4, 5, 6 page document. But so there's particularly reference points that we think are pertinent,
Yes.
that if people want to go and understand more about that, this is where they should go in the report. You know, we can take those pieces of information out and drop them in there, but now you're going to be finished with a large report. So there needs to be balance. Which
we're
part
just
do you want to go?
tagging
Yeah.
where to find it.
Correct.
So we need to find where that tag is. So if someone's onto that looking at the report, they can have a look. Or maybe one of you guys can help us with a tag, a page number or something for that bit. High-level waste are fuel rods that have been pulled out from a nuclear reactor and has already been cooled down. Ref page, blah-de-blah, for half a century or so. Okay, Anna.
I also just wanted to
Shane.
mention that there's a table in Appendix L regarding the probability of accidents in transport, and a table is an excellent thing to include. And if anyone else wants to have a look at that, perhaps that's something that could be considered for the transport section.
Okay, table L, chapter 9 or appendix L? Yes? Yep. Appendix L?
Appendix
Thanks,
L.
Anna.
309.
309. Page 309. So this is
Is that
more
right,
useful
what I've got up there?
to tag. Don't talk without the microphone.
It's a question to...
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Belinda and then Caroline.
As part of this process, do we have time to go back to the beginning of this section and very quickly go through it in order?
Back through the whole section again?
Yeah, as part of this group yesterday, and then not being involved in it today,
Yep.
to me it seems quite changed. And if I was reading this for the first time, it appears to be very leading. I'm interpreting it as it leading me in one direction rather than just generally outlining considerations around safety.
All right, so I'll tell you what's in front of us. We've got this. We've got consent and trust, which has gone into one, am I right? Yes. And we've got economics to have a look at. Economics we're pretty happy with. I don't know how much that's changed. We've got an hour to do all of that. So we can, but we do need to keep moving because otherwise we're not going to get this report done.
Okay, because this particular section to me seems to be one that would be important to a big part of the community, and yet what I heard and what I've remembered of what I've heard today doesn't present very balanced.
Okay, so can we scroll back up to the top of this section, Stan? Let's have another look at it. Safety is an important consideration because of the potential impact from radiation to people and the environment and the long time scales involved while the material becomes less hazardous. So you need to pick them out as you see them. The jury has read the report and quizzed many expert witnesses. Many safety and security considerations have been presented and discussed. The considerations include, but not limited to, geological, seismic, acts of terrorism, health and transport. The report suggests that the management of waste can be done safely. Someone needs to find where that tag is. All members of the jury agreed all South Australians need to feel confident in all of the regulatory processes, so we can all feel confident, that's a bit repetitive, in the safety of themselves, the environment and for future generations. It's important to discuss safety and security because of the timescale of the proposal to develop a GDF and the longevity of the high-level waste. Any red flags yet?
Just some grammar, but that's
okay. Grammar's okay. We'll forget about grammar. Okay. Anyone else comfortable? Let's tick that bit.
Where's the GDF?
Yeah, I've got a note to describe that, to reference it
Should I
properly.
just delete this text?
Yeah, delete the all feel confident second bit. Yep. Okay, definitions. Right, health. I need to put these back on. The report examines the effect of radiation exposure on humans throughout all stages of the fuel cycle in Chapter 7. The jury heard testimony from expert scientific and technical witnesses on topics surrounded the various stages of the nuclear fuel cycle: transport, health, security and safety. The report addresses the effect of radiation exposure on humans, and most of the expert witnesses were of the opinion of the relative safety of the storage containers. There is some uncertainty around the impacts on flora and fauna, which warrant further study, as is done in Finland. No red flags? Okay, good. We know, so seismic and geological, finding 72, we know that many parts of SA are remarkable with regards to geological and seismic stability. which are well suited for a geological disposal facility. There's our definition. Okay, red flag, Marcel. Thanks, Viv. I seem to only have 2 microphones. Oh no, right. Go.
We've got a geological disposal facility, a nuclear waste storage facility, a high-level waste storage facility. We need to have something. I know this is related to geological, but I think we need to keep, in relation to the facility, it needs to be the same.
Okay, can we resolve that right now? It's the technicals.
Unfortunately, if you put it 500 metres below ground, it's classed as being a GDF. So when it's stored above ground, it's not. It only becomes a GDF when it goes underground. And that's why it's now referred to under seismic, that it's in fact a GDF. So there is there's a difference in terms in safety of transporting.
Okay, let's think about how we make this easy for people out there to read. How do we make it easy? A storage facility? Okay. Nick, I think
Can it just be generalised as a storage facility or high level or
Could I just
used
say,
fuel?
So what you potentially could do is say the definitions are...
when I sat down here and saw GDF, I had no idea what it was, and I asked people near to me, and none of them knew what GDF meant. And we're at the end of...
So just call it a storage facility.
So, are there... does anyone have a problem? No, we like storage facility. Thumbs up. Sorry? Waste storage facility. No? Storage? Waste and storage facility. Okay. All right, this is going to keep us, we're going to get stuck in this and we're not going to get any further.
Can I just point out that
find a way through.
In the interests of time saving, we used acronyms. I think we accept that they'll be expanded and then put in conformatively throughout the document. Similarly with references, we expect that we used one way of referencing but another group might have used another. So again, we'll just agree and that it's going to be conformed throughout the document. I don't think we need to keep rehashing
The question is, who does that? So, if you like, I'm happy to have a go at that and provide that to you tomorrow. But it's, I think this is a big thing.
In section 1, we were going to include one of the cartoons that talked about storage, and we were going to modify it to talk about surface and underground. So it's defined in section 1.
In section...
Well,
we've already done.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, so that's on page...
That's in section 1.
Oh, that's the bit you've designed.
So it's actually in the summary of the report. The diagram in there has a number of pictures and descriptors, and it actually states above ground and below ground storage.
A storage, my understanding of what I read, a storage is above the ground and disposal is underground. That's it.
We had a good suggestion which might be a compromise in terms of how we refer to the facility, because people don't want to downplay it, people don't want to upplay it. A nuclear storage facility.
A nuclear storage facility. So in here, do you say that this talks about, does there need to be a sentence that this talks about a geological disposal facility, which is an underground thing? Okay, so the suggestion was nuclear
storage
facility.
Just in terms of having a consistent term through the report.
Nuclear storage and disposal facility.
Nuclear storage and disposal. hang on. You need a microphone over here.
Management, storage and disposal.
Management, storage and disposal.
Can we just put in there too that it's a high level radiation? It's high level. Yes, but the government has there's already another thing going on where they're trying to decide where it is. So I don't want people to get confused.
Section. Yeah, okay.
This particular one is about the GDF. The next bit is about storage. We're talking about geology. So that is the GDF. The next one is the interim storage facility.
So do we need a clarifying sentence in there? Or is there a reference in the report? Okay, someone needs to dig us out of this. Go, talk, yeah, I can't see you.
Sorry, the report here says used nuclear fuel and intermediate level waste storage and disposal facilities in South Australia.
Okay, so you say it again?
I'm not suggesting that we use that, but I think what everyone's suggesting is all technically correct. There's no one or two words.
Because we mention it so many times, it's going to take up the whole...
So we could call it the facility.
Can we refer to it? No. Can we refer at the very beginning...
Take the mic, Tam.
Could we make a reference at the very beginning that this is what it is, have the long-winded explanation that's got the 10 words that follow it, and then we will be referring to it throughout this pamphlet, brochure or so forth as the facility
The
or
nuclear
GDF
facility.
or something or other.
Okay, so a sentence, up the front.
Emily, I understand that Ashog, who was asked before lunch, has actually had something to contribute to that.
Okay, sure. So the suggestion, Ashok, I don't know if you were just listening, the suggestion is that at the very start of our report we say it is a, whatever it is in the report, but we're going to refer to it as the facility or the nuclear facility, nuclear storage facility.
Yep. So a large proportions of the suggestions are correct, but fundamentally it's a facility to store, manage, and ultimately dispose of used fuel and intermediate level waste. So it's to do all of those things. Right? So simply speaking,
You just write that.
you first store it, you manage it, and ultimately, when you close all of the facilities, you've disposed of it. Right? You don't dispose of it at the start, you're storing it. Then you do other management activities to make it safe, and in year 120, according to the Commission's concept, we dispose and we
So it's
close the facility and walk away.
Let me get those
Right.
words again. A facility to store, manage and dispose of
Used fuel
used fuel,
and intermediate level waste.
used fuel and intermediate level waste.
Correct.
What do we want to call it? The facility. Do we like the facility? This is about how do we make this easy for people to read.
Mellows?
Huh?
Let's call it the bin.
Okay, so come on. The facility? All right, are you comfortable with the facility? Once we make that distinction at the very top of the document or wherever.
Facility.
The nuclear facility? So that's the definition, but we are going to refer to it as the nuclear facility. The facility. To make it easy.
Yeah, but you need the word nuclear because what kind of waste are we talking about normally?
Okay, all right. Can we live with the facility? Who can live with the facility? Okay, that's most of us. Let's live with it. Yeah, can we live with it? Right. Okay, let's move on.
I have.
Yes, of used nuclear fuel, intermediate nuclear level waste or something. Yeah, so we'll put the word. So why is high level not mentioned, Ashok? Intermediate and high level?
So used fuel is high level waste, but not all high level waste is used fuel. Right? So
Okay.
it's a very important distinction, because other high level waste includes, weapons grade plutonium, decommissioned nuclear warheads, and nobody is talking about accepting any of that.
So is there a way to put the word high level?
Yeah, so as it was earlier, if you said used fuel and in brackets high level waste,
high level waste,
you're acknowledging that used fuel is a form of high level waste.
okay, high level waste and intermediate level waste. We're calling it the facility. Right, let's get chill with the facility. Yep, okay, we're moving on.
This is still on a different part of this, but just in seismic and geological.
Yep.
Is it possible to consider a different opening rather than we know, considering just different words?
So the report recognises?
It is recognised that, or research has shown that.
The report, so at finding
report.
72 recognises, the report recognises that many parts of SA are remarkable with regards to blah, blah, blah. Okay, done. Draw a line, red line going back. Okay, nuclear storage. The report recommends pursuing the opportunity to establish a geological disposal facility, refer to recommendation 11. 500, there's two Fs there, get rid of the facility. 500 metres underground somewhere in SA. However, a site selection was not part of the scope of the Royal Commission. There is no facility like this that's in operation anywhere yet in the world, but sites are being developed in Finland, Sweden and France. Tick, good. Scrolling down, please. Something's used there. You've just lost something.
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that's what you lost.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so part of the process of geological disposal facility is to store the used fuel, in brackets, high level waste, in specialised containers. I don't know, you're doing that every time? Oh well, used fuel, brackets, high level waste. This is let's make it easy for people.
Can we just call this waste here?
Okay, all right. In specialised containers. The Nuclear Fuel Cycle, I think that's meant to be Royal Commission, RC report, concluded that the storage containers have been rigorously designed. If you're interested, refer to Appendix I. The public need to be confident that an independent, transparent regulator, particularly in light of regulatory fails both internationally and locally. This is emphasised in the report in Chapter 9. There are international standards, research data and experiences that can be used to support introducing an Australian regulator to ensure lessons learned abroad would be included in our safety regime. The exact nature of a regulator would be determined at a later stage. Tick. Happy? The report, yep, flag. There's one here and one there. You need a microphone though.
The section that says, if you are interested in, I mean, we could have done that all the way through it, refer to this, refer. Can't we just say, at the end of that sentence, just go, refer Appendix J, refer Appendix I?
Sorry.
Let's leave it, let's leave the personality as it is, because I think it's there for this one. If you can live with that. Yeah. Okay. And then I'll go to you, Emily.
Only question with that one is it's discussing the storage containers, but it's not indicating that they're above ground.
That was going to be my point.
Yeah. And I would think that we'd want to put in there the time frames that it's above ground, because when I've been speaking to people, a lot of them had no idea that was part of the process.
I think that was an omission, and my suggestion might be to include something like part of the process being considered is to store the used facility. store the used fuel above ground in specialised containers. Like the above ground is an omission there, I think. So not part of the process of the GDF, but just part of the process. And that we need to input that this particular component is above ground.
In specialised containers.
That's the part that we wanted to change, that diagram in the report to use in our summary, was specifying, I guess, surface and underground, and also timelines.
All right. Okay, we need to move on. In specialised containers for... How long, Ashok, is it being above ground? Roughly? 40 years? Sorry. How long is it being stored above ground?
Who's in charge of tech? Yep.
Okay, we'll just get an answer to that. I'm just getting some power for the laptop.
It's
Adam, have you got an extension cord? Oh, beautiful. Okay, so we're looking for a time there.
So there's a suggestion to remove that text as well. Where's the...
Okay. Is democracy in the making? Watch me trip over this now. I'll just trip over. I have been promising, haven't I? You watch. Okay. Okay, we're getting the clarity. What's the timing? Ashok?
So some waste or some used fuel is stored at the interim storage facility from project year 11 to project year 120.
Above ground. Yeah, go, Carolyn. We just need to leave the microphones on, I think.
Pardon my ignorance here, though. I think if we start talking the years in this brochure, that we actually have to then give them the whole timeline. I think we're going too granular right now.
For many years?
For many years. Otherwise you've got to go right through every single part of the timeline.
So you can put where that is for many years?
Yeah, and refer to the timeline.
Refer.
Yep.
Refer page.
Yeah,
for many decades?
Yep, but not specific
or for decades?
Years.
Many decades? Yeah. Sorry, I'm standing there looking at you with the microphone in my hand.
Before this process, I thought, okay, yeah, it's going to be buried under the ground, but it's going to be sitting for 100 years, so none of us will actually see it buried. So I think it's important to perhaps put that time in.
I don't think that's true. I think what was said was a little bit misleading. A single container, as I understand it, will be above ground for 40 years, roughly, and that container will go underground. But there will be other containers in that 40 years that arrive. Is that correct? So
each container would be there for about 40 years.
Of the whole project, it'll be 100 years or whatever, but each container will only be there for 40.
Okay, so go, Renee.
I've written down some timeline quotes from the report. So this is how it's written in the report, that it will be 14 years for the establishing the regulatory systems and expertise. In 2030, the Commission considers the earliest is that the nuclear power would be expected to come to South Australia. In 2030, it will start to be stored above ground for 20 to 30 years to cool before being permanently stored below ground. Estimating that 2050, it starts to be put below ground. And then in about 100 years, it'll be the time that the below ground is closed.
Okay, so what we're looking for here is how long it's above ground. We're suggesting 40 years.
From that point, 100 is
Would you like to hear from Ashok?
What page is that?
Renee, would you like to hear from Ashok on that?
Page 291. Yeah, go Ashok.
So from the beginning till the end, so the geological disposal facility starts operation on the Commission's model from year 28 to year 120. Following year 120, the geological disposal facility is closed. So what that means is that it's backfilled and all of the above ground sites are decommissioned. All sites related to these facilities, the above ground facility, everything else involved in the management of youth fuel is decommissioned. The sites are remediated and you walk away. So that's...
Okay, all right. So now we've got 20 to 30.
Yeah, that's correct.
20 to 30 is correct. We can move on. Okay, let's move on. And I'm really, really worried about time now because we have a lot of work to do. So we need to be moving. Yeah, so yep. So you're comfortable? We comfortable? Where are we at with this? So I've read through the last little bit. Is the report looks at many different activities in different stages of the cycle. Each stage comes with its own set of risks and opportunities. The report looks in details at risks associated with mining, refining, power generation and waste management. It's important to note that the most well-known incidents are associated with power generation, and the report doesn't recommend power generation in SA at this time. Report finds that there is minimal impacts. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just say, if it's not recommended in the report, why do we even put that in our document?
Because it's a big issue. Okay, let's not take too much away. The report finds there's a minimal impact to the public and to workers as a result of the recommended activities. The expected doses are far below natural levels of background radiation that we're all exposed to daily. See Chapter 7, page 133. There's a diagram there. Okay, can you live with that chapter? Let's go. I can live with it. And I'm standing up, shaking out my sillies. Go on, up you get, have a shake. Woohoo, can live with it. Okay, general living with it. We've done a really good going over on that one. So well done. Good job. Congratulations. Well done, safety team. Okay. All right. Thanks, Dan. All right. So now we're on consent. Consent. Who's speaking to consent and who's typing? Who's typing for consent? Jenny? Come to the hot seat.
Okay, informed community consent is valued. We added that. You should know that there needs to be broad social informed consent and specific community consent must be obtained for any new nuclear activity to start in South Australia. Your opinion is valued instead of your is. Your challenge is to be informed, educated so that you can make an informed, educated decision. I'm not sure how the word's there. You have an opportunity to invite expert witnesses to view facilities and be provided with a translator if required to enable your community to make an informed decision. And there's a reference. You need to be aware that the law needs to change for any new nuclear activity to be developed in SA. You need to ensure the government is accountable and transparent in this process. Lack of community consent inevitably leads to failure of these projects. See that reference. And then some questions. How is the community's consent measured and made, and how can I be involved? And that's it, isn't it, Jenny?
Recommended reading?
We recommend that you read the report summary, which is at the start, and the basic information about radiation risks, that level, that reference, disposal of nuclear waste, and the recommendations of Chapter 10.
So there will be, there is a recommendations, a few of them there.
Yeah.
But I think that's talking about the recommendations in Chapter 10.
Yeah, so I'm saying if they're already going to be in the top part, we don't need to then put it down as recommended reading, that was all.
Okay, so all of that doesn't need to be there? Or just one bit of it?
We still recommend that people read them, whether they read the summary first and then go and read the final recommendation.
Okay, let's leave it. Let's not die in the ditch over that, if we're comfortable. All right. So, what's on your mind? Who's got harbouring some discomfort there? Where's the microphone's gone?
It's over here with me. Hi.
No, you've got it already. You're waving at me. Where were you? Do you have it behind your back?
Ilka, my special friend Ilka. So, at the end of that, I was like, is that it? I feel like, is that it? Because that is the lowest common denominator of consensus between you guys. Because, I mean, if so, I accept that. But what I don't why I don't understand this is because it seems to me to be the most contentious and interesting topic for all of our communities and society in South Australia to discuss how we arrive at consent and consensus and how we measure it, what it looks like. That's for us as a state to
So, Khadija,
really
can you be a
deal
bit
with.
more
And
explicit?
I don't understand.
Tell me what's missing.
Well, it seems very short for the sort of depth of the issue, but if it's because it's complicated and you're trying to avoid it, that's fine. But for me as well, I would rather see something put in about, and I will say for me, Aboriginal, the unique perspective of Aboriginal people as the traditional owners and First Peoples of this country.
Can I respond?
Yep, and then I'll go to Caroline.
The specific community consent was referenced to where a facility will be sited. That was our thinking. So the overall community of SA has to be involved and informed, as well as specifically for that community that will host that facility. So that was the specific relates to that community that actually hosts.
I think we need to go back to the gateways as well.
Okay, Caroline, have you got something to add?
I just sort of wanted to say that I was pretty happy with the conciseness of this section, largely because I feel the issue of what is consent, how do we determine consent, is an issue which, yes, is very engaging and concerning, but is not an issue that needs to be summarised from within the report, which is what we need to do with this task.
So, I'm wondering, is there an opportunity here to say something about the jury recognises the importance of good engagement and understanding whether consent is there or something like that? Dulcie, you might have something.
I would like to say, yes, I was in that group. I don't feel comfortable with this because when I read from the report, they mentioned 3 pages about the principles for engagement with Aboriginal people. I think that needs to be mentioned. Needs to have, if the report is spending 3 pages telling us how to engage with Indigenous people, I think my opinion does make me uncomfortable because it's not there. There is no mention about how to engage with Indigenous people. Sorry, I needed to say. And also there is information, 2 pages about the land, the heritage, and respect the rights of the Indigenous people, and it was not mentioned.
Okay, so we're picking up a gap, some uneasiness with just some text that's missing. Can I have one of those mics to run the other side? Ta. Okay, go.
Okay, I'm kind of translating this for someone else in a way, but I do understand where she's coming from. I think it's the way we're directing it, so it's very you should, and I think we want consent to be more an open thing in regards to the community and all the communities that will be involved with it. So maybe it's the wording.
All right. So we're at the point where I need you to not tell me what's wrong with it and you're feeling that's missing something. I need someone to add something in as a suggestion. Put something on the table for us that Jenny can type up. Anna? Hang on. Grab your mic. Get ready to write, Jenny.
Without even reading it, all of this, I'm just highlighting some of the things that are in Chapter 6. Social consent is the ongoing public support that is necessary for an activity to be undertaken in a society. Social consent is not given once, but for the life of an activity. I mean, there's a whole chapter in here.
Yeah,
in
Chapter 6.
Yeah, that I don't know.
So you've referenced Chapter 6 throughout this bit, so that can just be referenced. What I think I'm hearing is that, and I'm testing this with you, what I think I'm hearing is that we're missing a bit with Aboriginal, regional, whatever.
Can I just say, I didn't know what social consent, individual consent, community consent even was. Even after being in that group yesterday, I understood what we were discussing, but I disagreed with the terminology. Last night I sat at the computer and read the definition of consent, and I felt that the definition of consent was not this. So I don't know whether we want to word it differently or whether we put in that description that Anna so lovely just read out, because that to me is what I was searching for last night and I couldn't find it. So I think that that should be included, because people reading this will be, what is consent?
So you could say under that first line, the report states, Anna?
Social consent is the ongoing public support that is necessary for an activity to be
ongoing.
Sorry. Public support.
Public support.
That is necessary for an activity
Yep, keep going.
to be undertaken in a society.
I think at the start of that sentence you need to say, the report states that. Because you've just read that directly out.
Can you tell me the page number?
121. I quite like also that social consent is not given once for the life of an activity.
So the report states that social consent is the ongoing public support that is necessary for an activity to be undertaken in a society, full stop. The report also states that social consent
is not given once for the life of an activity.
That's on the same page?
Yeah. Social consent is not given once, but for the life of the activity. Okay, comfortable with that addition? Starting to help just pull out that bit about social consent that everyone needs to discuss. I think we need to go back to what's missing. Belinda, have you got something to add?
Just with the repetitiveness of some of the opening sentences, could we look at changing the first one to something like there needs to be, or know that there needs to be, rather than you should know?
Or the jury recognises.
Just
the jury recognises that there needs to be both broad social informed consent and specific community consent obtained. Take out maybe the must be. The jury, what did I say? The jury what? Recognises that there needs to be both broad social informed consent and specific community consent obtained. So take out the must be. For any nuclear activity to start in South Australia. We can say we recognise that because we can recognise what's in the report. Yeah. Okay. What else do we need to add to that? Do you want to add anything else?
Aboriginal workers or local. You can maybe flesh out the local.
No, it's broader than that. It's Aboriginal people generally.
I wonder if there's something that the jury notes the importance of this to specific communities or something.
Can we change the notes to believes?
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so read it out. Craft a sentence, Marcel. No, you're the juror.
The jury
We believe, or the jury believes.
The jury believes
The jury believes. The jury believes, full stop. The jury believes that, what did I say?
and I'll change the word to believe, the local or the Indigenous
In the importance.
Believes in the importance of
the local Indigenous communities' consent.
In
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal believes in the importance of Aboriginal.
Consent.
Do you want to do Aboriginal and local community?
Yeah.
Yep.
And local community consent. How's that? Is that strong enough? Jury believes in the importance of Aboriginal and local community consultation and consent.
I think we might be confusing if we're going back to consultation when the title
that's
says
okay.
consent.
That's all right. If it helps, just think about how is it going to help other people.
Okay.
Local community engagement and consent. Okay, so take out consultation and put engagement, because engagement is a bit stronger.
Because when you talk to Aboriginal people and we get consulted, they say, oh, this is what we're doing. And then they'll say, yeah, we consulted and that's all we had to do. Thanks for coming.
So engagement is richer than consult.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, Maddie?
Sorry, with regards to the Aboriginal rights, there's an interesting section here in page 128, in particular sections 105, 106. So to the extent that any project would be proposed on land in which there are Aboriginal rights and interests, including native title rights, the interests, they must be respected. And then the deep connection that Aboriginal people have with the land and their responsibility for its care must be understood and respected by any nuclear project.
Okay, so if we just reference that page number. Okay, page 128. Jenny?
Wasn't there a mention of 105 and 6 as well? Yes. Oh, sections. Section.
Okay, page 128, section 105 to 6. Okay, how are we going? Can we live with that? Next paragraph. You need to be aware. Yeah, okay.
Something like it is recognised that the law needs to change.
Okay, it's recognised that the law needs to change. Are you happy with that? The report recognises that the law needs to change.
But can I just say that we very deliberately directed this to the reader?
To the
by
reader,
saying
okay.
that. You know, that...
Yeah.
Hang on, Jodie. If I say, you need to be aware.
So if you write, you need to be aware, as a reader I look at that and I go, whoa, I need to be aware of this. So we actually wrote it this way to have people involved in the consent process, whereas if you're writing, the jury believes, I'm reading a story. It's like the jury believes, the report says. But this is why we worded it. Your challenge is to be informed and educated. So we were speaking to them, but it's a style thing. So if the
maybe we
jury
say
isn't
something,
happy,
maybe a balance is, it's important that
Yeah,
the community are aware. The community is aware. You must be aware. Okay, it's important that the community is aware that the law needs to change for any new nuclear activity to be developed in SA. You need to ensure the government is accountable and transparent in this process.
So do you want me to put and in there?
And we need. Yeah, and we need. Yeah? We? Okay. And we need to ensure that government is accountable and transparent in this process. Or the government. Are they? Sorry. Okay, all right. Lack of community consent inevitably leads to failure of these projects. Full stop, end of story. Can you live with that? Okay, I'm going to take one more question before we do our vote, maybe two, and then we're voting.
Mine's on a different section, so...
Oh, it's not on consent?
It is on consent, but it goes back to
I'm wrapping up consent, so...
So we go back to the statement where the report recognises. Keep going.
2 fingers. Yep, that's it.
So it's the sentence, the second sentence in the report states that social consent is ongoing public support that is necessary for the activity to be undertaken in a society, right? The second is actually it's an abbreviation. That's not it, actually. That's not it. Oh, okay. So the next sentence is actually abbreviation of 2 sentences. So I'm going to give it to Anna to read those 2 sentences so we can make it clear, because that's not clear.
So social consent is something that is commonly taken into account as part of a political process. It is not given once for the life of an activity. But is it necessary to include that?
You don't need to do it
I
ad
don't
lib.
actually understand. I have to say, I don't actually understand. Once for the life, or once...
Is not given once, but instead is something that's ongoing. Maybe you just... So you're not writing the original statement because you're referencing back to it on page 121. So make it make sense here. Social consent is not given once, but is ongoing for the life of the activity. Right. Can we live with this chapter? Stand up if you can. Come on. Oh, look, have we got a full complement? Look, yay! Well done. Okay. All right, so last one. Oh, no, we've got trust. So we need to move quickly, guys, because we're really running out of time and we've got to get ready to present this to the Premier. Marcel, are you taking us into trust?
Yeah.
Okay. So no more changes. We'll do it in a minute. We'll do it in a minute. Okay, no more changes. All right. So trust, accountability and transparency are vital.
The Royal Commission's report states we have a choice as South Australians as to whether or not we want to further engage in the nuclear fuel cycle. See reference. Factors that promote trust and transparency need to be built into the design of any regulatory systems. Our decision will affect both future generations of South Australians and options for other nations for the management of their high-level radioactive waste. You need to consider that moral and ethical responsibilities are central to the ownership and
Other way. Yeah.
integrity of our decision. Do we think these actions are good? Do we think they are the right decisions? It is an international principle of radioactive waste management, with a reference that the society that generates the waste is responsible for managing it. Those nations that are unable to manage their own waste within their borders are permitted, reference, to contract the radioactive waste management to another country, or we do this. Our challenge is to build and maintain trust by avoiding repeating past mistakes such as Maralinga. The Royal Commission report recommends that clauses from SA legislation reference be removed, which currently prohibits public money being used to encourage or finance the construction and operation of a nuclear...
No, you've done right. Finance construction or operation
of a nuclear waste storage facility. Further investigation cannot proceed without changing this legislation. Reference. The Royal Commission report recommends removal at the state level and or federal level existing prohibitions in law on the licensing of processing activities to enable commercial developments such as nuclear fuel leasing and existing prohibitions on nuclear power generation. We as a community need to ensure that any measures put in place are what we want. And then this is a question, will the public have an opportunity to review any proposed changes to legislation? Which is again with that consent process.
Okay. All right. Is there anything burning that you will never be happy with if you don't talk about it now? Shane?
For me, leaving Maralinga in there.
Why?
Because it confuses the issue in terms of the nuclear fuel process. And it's nothing to do with Maralinga or anything else. I have a real concern with leaving something in there that has a lack of relevance.
Okay, so it's in the report, and it's actually about, if you look at the sentence, it's actually about maintaining trust by avoiding repeating past mistakes. Yeah. So it's the concept about mistakes.
Leave out Maralinga.
Okay.
It's not
Wendy? It's on.
The reason we left Maralinga in there is because it was a mistake, and mistakes happen, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah, my concern is people link. Sorry, my concern is that people then link a nuclear explosion with what we're talking about. It's completely different. That's why I'm concerned about using Maralinga as the reference point.
Yeah. Okay. So that. It's the past. It's this tension between, this notion of past mistakes.
It's a different matter if we look at a past mistake with respect to a repository site.
Yeah.
Not a nuclear explosion.
It is, sorry.
Dulcie?
It is related with trust, and based on what happened in the past, the indigenous community doesn't trust, and then it's related with trust. That's the reason why we need to incorporate Marigalinga. It is mentioned in the report.
As part of this actual discussion group, we are strictly pointed to giving the information that is actually in the report, not any other outside information. And the only references to accidents are Maralinga, Radium Hill, and something else that I don't remember. So therefore, given the guidelines and the parameters we were given, that is the only reference we can make, because we can't actually make a reference, even though there has been accidents in storage, below ground storage facilities in the world. Yeah.
Okay, page
you can't
125.
reference that because it's not in the report.
Okay, so maybe at the end of that sentence, as referenced on page 125. Oh, Khadija, you had to, didn't you?
Can't help it. I just wanted to say the lesson from Maralinga is not just about radioactive contamination of the earth, although that is obviously a major concern and lesson for us and the world. The other lesson to learn from the Maralinga experience, and there's a whole Royal Commission on it, and there's a chapter in this Royal Commission about that engagement process and what happens when communities aren't actually engaged and understanding what the ramifications are. And obviously, well, we all know that the effects on Aboriginal people's health and well-being and land and connection to country and culture were affected. We also know that British soldiers experienced the same health and well-being effects. But a lot of Aboriginal people also were, killed, blown up in the whole thing because they weren't engaged with. They didn't know where to go. Some people lost their eyesight because they couldn't speak English. That engagement, that ability to access health in the wake of a disaster or the wake of something going wrong, whether it's a big disaster or a little disaster or a little accident, the things we can learn from that are not just about the effects on the earth and the environment. It's also about the human element and how we address that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so there's now a reference in there, so pointing back to the report. Shane, can you live with that?
Can I just, I agree with what you've said, but I think we just maybe need to elaborate what some of those lessons were, because the fear factor that comes with just the word Maralinga, yeah, do you know what I mean? So I think that it's
So
fine
how would we do that?
So maybe it's about the lack of consultation, education, communication, engagement with the communities to prevent such an incident like Maralinga. Just a thought.
So potentially, our challenge is to build and maintain trust by avoiding repeating past mistakes, such as Maralinga, where there was a lack of engagement and communication. There was other things. Parry. Can you help us out of this pickle, Parry? So, I mean, what we need to find is how do we do this well? How do we pick this up and round it out?
So people know the difference of what Maralinga was. Should it be, where did I say written? The atomic weapons testing at Maralinga? Because I am younger and maybe ignorant, Maralinga, I had no idea what that was. When people say Maralinga, I'm like, where's Maralinga? What's Maralinga? What happened there? By actually saying atomic weapons testing at, and then people go, oh, that was from bombs, and then they'll know it's different to storage facility. That was from a weapons testing site. Then they know the difference of those two.
Okay, Jenny, I think don't keep typing that bit because it wasn't well received as a suggestion.
Sorry.
So,
mistakes such as the atomic weapons testing at Maralinga.
Such mistakes. Mistakes such as the atomic weapons testing
at Maralinga.
In Maralinga.
In the 1950s and 60s, if you want to have a time.
I don't necessarily say here that we're suggesting that obviously we know how bad that was and that was a mistake itself, but the point that we're making here in trust is that the lack of consultation and community engagement was the mistake that we're focusing on.
And the report mentioned to use interpreters. They need to receive the information in their own language. The report mentioned to use face-to-face consultation. That's the thing to make it better for next time.
I don't think we want to muddy the waters by saying atomic weapons. That's just... Yeah, that's right. But if...
I understand that you don't want to muddy the waters by bringing it in, but I think having it in and saying the mistake at Maralinga was to do with there was atomic weapons testing at Maralinga. We see mistakes in that process. We want to avoid those same mistakes, which are It doesn't, I think it actually helps clarify the difference rather than confuse it.
Okay, can we live with that? Can we live with that? There's some no's. Who's a no? Francesca? I've got a microphoneless. Hang on, you need a mic. Where are all the microphones?
Can we add just after the...
Go,
Can we
Neil.
just add about the atomic weapons testing at Maralinga, which is different from the storage facility proposed now? So we can make in the same sentence, make it a difference between both of them.
Okay, so our challenge is to build and maintain trust by avoiding repeating past mistakes, such as the lack of consultation and information about the atomic weapons testing at Maralinga. Francesca?
I just thought we said consultation. Khadija was saying it really isn't consultation.
Lack of involvement, engagement. Yeah, it was engagement and communication. Engagement and communication, I think, was the language we just had. Okay, are we comfortable with that?
Engagement and communication.
Engagement and communication.
And I delete this bit.
You're deleting the yellow bit. Our challenge is to build and maintain trust by avoiding repeating past mistakes, such as the lack of engagement and communication about the atomic weapons testing at Maralinga.
I understand that you're clarifying it, but I'm just thinking of that associated fear factor of atomic weapons. Is that going to... Yeah, I realise that, but the nuclear fuel cycle that we're dealing with has got nothing to do with atomic weapons testing. I recognise that...
Do you need to say that?
I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. Can we live with it? Imperfect. There's lots of this that are imperfect. Lots of this. It's actually quite strong, I think. It's actually really strong and honest, which is what you should be producing. Okay. Who can live with it? Who can live with it? Come on, look, he's up. Come on, they're slow to get up, but look at that. Millicent, you gotta...
I'm not standing up.
Oh, you can live with it. Beautiful. Okay, well done. Good job. Good job. Okay, so economics. Thanks, Jenny. Next one, economics, quick changeover. Quick changeover, because this is the last one. Hopefully there hasn't been many changes, was the question. Okay, so yesterday we were generally happy with this one. This is why I've saved it for last, so that's good. Who's reading?
Yep.
Righto.
It's a bit longer now, so.
Oh, it's a bit longer.
Yep. Okay.
course.
Recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 11 should be referenced for the economic benefits in the nuclear fuel cycle. The Nuclear Fuel Cycle Royal Commission report recommends that we pursue the opportunity to establish used nuclear fuel and intermediate level waste storage and disposal facilities in South Australia. Recommendation 11. This facility has the potential to provide a significant income for South Australia. There are risks and uncertainties with this endeavour that still require more research. This research requires further financial commitment by South Australia, which is needed in order to make a better informed decision if this project is to go ahead to pre-commitment negotiation with client nations. There is the possibility that further research may determine that this project is not viable. However, there is a strong possibility that this project will be viable in the future and provide a significant income for South Australia. Should this project go ahead, the report recommends the project to be funded by a client nation with a pre-commitment payment that will cover all expenditure costs. This is to ensure that there is no possibility of client nations withdrawing from the project. Quote, through pre-commitment from the client countries, the state would not need to assume significant commercial risks in incurring capital costs to develop the project. Refer to page 102 for estimated revenue and pre-commitment. Given the intergenerational nature of this project, it is important to ensure any economic benefits are ongoing. Refer to chapter 5. There were varying views between expert witnesses on the economic viability of this project, and therefore some of the jury felt that there was insufficient detail in the conservative economic modelling by the Royal Commission report to feel comfortable progressing to further involvement. Refer to page 102. Whilst this is a first step, there are many more questions that must be answered before we will be comfortable progressing to the next phase. There are many questions still unanswered by the Royal Commission report. These include: what benefit can be made available to South Australia now and in future generations? How can we be sure that the economic analysis completed by the Royal Commission is robust? How will the South Australian brand or external reputation be affected? And how will this have an effect on tourism and trade? What reliance is there on other countries to pre-commit to storing high-level nuclear waste at a fixed price? And how will the benefits be realised, and how will the wealth be distributed? A call to action for South Australia. There is a real opportunity for South Australians to increase their knowledge and participation in the nuclear fuel cycle, including South Australia's current participation, and to better understand the potential benefits and risks. Refer to page 292. The jury suggests reading appendix, which is basically the analysis of the whole viability of those impacts, of the economic impacts. And then if there's any further interest, read chapters 5. Page 73.
Okay, let's start from the very end. Who can live with that? Because we'd gone a far way yesterday. If you can live with it, if you like it, you think it nails it, pick it up. It's a stand up, Millicent. I'm getting the code. Okay. So some stand ups. Maddie, Viv's got one with you. I'm going to actually come over. Oh, there's cautious standing upness going on. Did you get a mic? No. Matt. Okay, you can sit if you want to sit.
Sorry, it's only very small. There was a section there where it refers to some of the jury. I'm just concerned that maybe that will give the impression that some people have formed an opinion on particular objects.
There we go. There were varying views between expert witnesses on the economic viability of this project, and therefore some of the jury felt there was insufficient detail in the conservative economic modelling.
Yeah, we did have discussion on that point, and we thought it was better for this forum to decide whether it should be in or be out. So
I'm happy to leave something like that in, but maybe if we just reword it so it doesn't sound like there's a, because it almost gives the impression that there's a proportion of the jury that agree that the financial estimates are accurate.
So the suggestion is, do we leave some of the jury or just the jury? Is that what you're suggesting? Okay, and therefore there is a question. There is some. There remain questions about the conservative. And therefore, questions remain relating to insufficient detail. Relating to insufficient detail. How we go? Relating to the economic modelling. Okay. Relating to the economic modelling. So we're taking conservative out. To feel comfortable progressing to further involvement. You know what? I think that's what it was yesterday. Yes. Good one. Okay. So what else? What else is problematic, Anna?
Just that another point is, how do we incorporate rapid change in future technologies such as nuclear fuel recycling in next generation reactors, is another economic query.
Okay, so it's another question.
Yeah.
There's some questions down the bottom. Yeah. So what is the question? How
do we incorporate rapid change in future technologies such as nuclear fuel recycling in next generation nuclear reactors?
Such as nuclear recycling, was it? Nuclear fuel recycling.
How do we incorporate
fuel recycling
in the next generation of nuclear fuel reactors?
Okay. Are you comfortable to have that question in there? Questions are good because they help to get people thinking about things. So Dulcie, there's Ilka.
That question about the South Australian brand, I agree. I would like, yes, to have that question. But also at the same time, the report mentioned there are cases like the French one, the cheese company, in page 232.
Okay. So maybe put in brackets.
But what I mean is, yes, we need to think about that maybe there is an effect in our reputation, in our food, but also there are positive cases.
There are positives, yeah. So page 222?
Page 232 mention about the French cheese, and they got a facility in that area.
Okay, good. All right, Stan, you've got a question. Who else raised?
Just on that same point, in the report itself, so that's from an appendix. In the report itself, finding 145 on page 163 looks at impacts on other sectors. And it says there are no compelling evidence that the development of nuclear facilities in South Australia would adversely affect other economic sectors, provided these facilities are operated safely and securely.
Finding 145 on page 163. Tam, I'm working away. Go.
There's just a slight confusion in regards to the facility being near the cheese factory. Is that something that should have been included in the safety, or are we trying to refer that economically it's not affecting other businesses by having these cheese factories near the facility? Is that what we're trying to...
I think the champagne reference might actually be a stronger one there.
Yeah, it was impact. So this was impact on the brand. So it probably has crossover. Yeah. But this was specifically, and where this came from, this economics thing was about economics, future technologies, and reputation. So that's why it's landed there. Yep. Comfortable? Millicent, go.
I have a little question about the commitment of other countries for the disposal of their high-level waste. I think we should have something in that which also includes them being responsible for transport costs to the country because it's very expensive transport of high-level waste? And the other thing is, does that commitment, is it envisaged that commitment covers the continuing management of the waste when those countries may have changed their technology to a new form of reactor and therefore not have any more waste at all?
It does say all expenditure costs, which I think is quite broad.
Okay, good. Resolve that. Bang. Renee. Someone else is going?
I just had one. It's sort of going back now to the tourism, but there is a potential that having the waste facility, no, but maybe the industry around it could potentially have a great effect on the economy because the underground testing lab is it in Finland? Correct me if I'm wrong, is the #1 tourist site. So it could actually I don't know that anyone's going to want to go to the dump, but in terms of nuclear education programs and facilities, there may be a positive effect on tourism.
The facility, it's not called the dump. Okay, so all right, we're not opening this back up again. We're just refining to ask a question, so there's nothing specific. You can live with it as it's framed. Just flick back up, M. About how will the South Australian brand or external reputation be affected, and how will this have an effect on tourism and trade? It might be. It could be positive or negative, or an impact. Okay, so an effect, positive or negative. Okay, leave it as an effect. All right, good-o. Let us go, Renee.
At the start, in the first paragraph, it mentions there is a strong possibility. Is that according to the jury or to the report? Maybe, I wonder if the word strong could be removed or... Yeah.
Okay. There is the possibility that further research may determine that this project is not viable. However, there is a strong possibility that this project will be viable in the future and provide a significant... So maybe take out the word strong.
Yeah,
okay.
I like to keep it quite neutral.
Good, that's nice and balanced.
Yeah.
However, there is a possibility, or likewise, there's a possibility that this project will be viable. Okay, Stan.
You're getting sick of my voice, aren't you?
I'm just getting sick of turning around.
I think that's kind of really misrepresenting what's in the report. The report basically says that there is a very good likelihood that there will be a good economic case for it. I think it's fair to acknowledge that that might not pan out, but kind of saying that it's 50-50 with this wording, which I think is just not fair.
Can we then write that the report, can we include that the report, outlines there as a strong,
The report suggests...
From the report,
Yep,
that
okay.
clarifies,
That there is a strong possibility. Let's go back to the language we had. Let's go back to the language because it was yours. Okay. However, the report suggests... Look at all these school teachers. Were you a school teacher? No. Okay, good. Okay, Francesca, question. Hang on, get your mic.
When I was in the economics group, we discussed a few things in relation to what was the project about. Is it about creating jobs, or is it about money? And a lot of the witnesses said it is about money because of the fact that it is a high risk, workforce that would be repetitive and automated. So the initial states, I think the construction, it's fine. But if it's all about money and it's going into a wealth fund or a sovereign fund, have we mentioned that so the public knows we're doing this for money and this is where the money's going?
There's a question, one of the questions I recall. Is it in there, Emily?
There is, so on this page, given the intergenerational nature of this project, it's important to ensure any economic benefits are ongoing. The reference there is to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and then there is a question about the ongoing economic benefits to the state.
How will the benefits be realised and how will the wealth be distributed? Is that okay? Yes. Satisfied? Yes. Okay.
So, Emily,
who else?
Somehow I have two microphones, so I'll between one.
Okay. Exhausting.
But a question for the jurors via you is there's some questions here that a Royal Commission staff member feels
Are addressed,
and there's some references jurors might want to consider.
Okay. Yeah. So Ashok's just raised a point that some of these questions are addressed in the report. You might still want to, I'm just flagging this before you start, you might still want to leave them there, but say there are many things we still need to discuss some more, which might be these. So over to you, Ashok.
Thank you. So I want to refer to two specific questions. Question number one is in relation to how we incorporate rapid change in future technologies, so related to the next generation of nuclear fuel reactors. Now, the Commission has incorporated that already into its determination of the size of the market of used fuel that would be available to South Australia. This assumption is conservative because, in a sense, it assumes that all nuclear power reactors that will be developed beyond 2030 are reactors that will consume all of the waste. There is no such reactor under development currently. So to suggest that the space of 13 years that will happen is, I would suggest, very conservative. Now that, you can find that on page 291, and I suggest that that reference be incorporated. Notwithstanding that, it's a question that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Point number two is in relation to Millicent's question about the cost of transport. Now, I agree with you that customers should pay for transport, but to be conservative, we have assumed that that comes off the revenue, right? So we assume that it costs $200,000 per tonne to transport it from wherever. We haven't identified where because the size of the market is geographically diverse, comes off the revenue, right? So you will also find that in Appendix J on page
Okay.
295.
So that's not a question up here. It was a question in the room, but thanks, Ashok. Great. Okay, so what Emily's done is just change that header to there are many things we still need to discuss. Okay, so some of them are flagged in the report, some not, some to satisfactory measure and some not.
Emily, just very quickly, we also did discuss, we haven't put it down here because you don't want to make it too long, but the robustness of the economic model hasn't been proven because we're not currently allowed by legislation to go and talk to a Japan or a Taiwan about whether they would send their fuel to us, what would they pay, etc., etc. So that's what we talk about, the ability to endeavour or to further research is really because, as of today, we talked about yesterday, we can't actually do that.
Yeah, so that's flagged up in this thing about we need to do further research, there are further costs, and so sort of recognising it, and that work was done yesterday. Yeah.
We recognised that in the trust document when we talked about the need to pass legislation before anything could progress.
Okay.
I would like to put on the a discussion because the Premier said if we have this nuclear waste, more jobs would be available.
Okay, so what are the workforce opportunities or what's the... Yeah, that did come up. Is that enough? What are the workforce opportunities?
So if the, sort of saying, if the potential of the nuclear waste is going to decline in virtually, was it in 13 years' time or something like that, so we're not going to actually...
Okay, let's not go into the topic. Let's grab the question.
Okay.
So what's the question? Is that nail the question for you? What are the... what's the realistic picture about the workforce opportunities?
Can I suggest that we put in skills training and research, which is part of the workforce. It's not
so
just
it could be jobs, skills,
training
and research. Okay. Skills, training and research. Do you want jobs in there?
I take opportunities as jobs.
Okay. Workforce opportunities, skills, training and research. Okay. Just it can be relaxed. Can you live with it? Can you live with it? Yeah. It's too much. Yes, there are thousands. So let's think of conversation starting. So there's lots of things that need to happen. I would be encouraging you to just leave a few more questions than not, because you want these conversations to happen. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, who can, yep. I come over to people without a microphone.
I have been asked who will own this nuclear waste facility and can it ever be sold off if South Australia were to come upon bad times again?
We had that conversation in the trust group, and I think it's better answered in the trust section, but there was a suggestion that there could be kind of fail-safes, I guess, built into the legislation, so potentially that could be answered elsewhere.
So I think it was picked up in a general way up in that said the right arrangements need to be put in place. Do you want to check it and have a look at it? Can you scroll up?
Yeah, we did discuss in the trust and consent in relation to like gateways or phases, and that the entity remains in public hands with, you know, as what Emily said, trigger points to stop that being transferred or sold off.
So there's a sentence in there which is quite a simple one. Is that enough? Yeah. Okay, all right.
Emily?
Yes?
I've been asked to pose a question to the jury.
Yeah.
If people are happy for me to do that.
Go for it.
Which is when, in that section, when you talk about we, who is the we? Is that we, the jury, or we, the South Australian community? That will have impacts in people reading it.
Okay.
I hope I've characterised that correctly.
So it's we? We is South Australia. So that we, our state. That our state, it's the royal we.
It goes to this thing about engaging people as people.
Yep, there are many things that South Australians need to discuss, maybe. South Australians, it's easier. We've kind of done a bit of South Australians. Last one. Can you live with it? Can you live with it? Oh, look, you're amazing. Oh, Millicent, well done. Thanks for getting up. Good job, guys. Okay. Well done, well done. Okay, so grab a seat. Hang. Yes, I know. So I just need to check timing, someone that knows something about timing. John, Premier's here at 4:30, so it's 3:20. Is afternoon tea there by any chance?